Callahan here. Today, I'm so excited to be speaking with Sylvia Farbstein. Welcome, Sylvia.
Hi, Deborah. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So I'm just going to go ahead and read your bio. Sylvia is an inspiring speaker, writer, and advocate who's on a mission to widen the lens through which people see their world. She has spent the last 2 decades learning how life presents us with unexpected twists and turns that can stop us in our tracks or provide a catalyst for exciting change. Her professional world took a leap from the defined realm of financial services to one of few answers and no blueprint when her son Brandon was born with a rare form of dwarfism. Their experiences navigating the world not built for someone like him prompted them to seek out ways to neither be confined nor defined by limitations, perceived or otherwise. This has led to an entrepreneurial career path for both of them that has impacted millions of lives. Sylvia has not only helped Brandon launch his professional speaking career, but has embarked on one of her own. She's advocated on anti-bullying legislation, collaborated on Brandon's 2 books, and has advised hundreds of families on how to leverage curiosity to turn obstacles into opportunities. She proudly works as Brandon's momager, and they spread his universal message to elevate empathy across the globe. So, Sylvia, I'd like to jump right in and talk about the moment that you decided to have curiosity be the driving factor in your life. Or have you always lived this way? Have you always been curious?
No, I really haven't. And I feel that sometimes, life presents us with opportunities to discover skills that we never honed into. And for me, that was when I took Brandon on his 2-year checkup. The doctor gave him the regular checkup, said everything looks good, get him dressed. And I said to the doctor, something in my gut tells me otherwise. Brandon's sister, Brooke, who's 2.5 years older, at this age would change sizes every few months. He's been wearing this size for quite a while. And when I take a close look at him, it appears that his torso is growing more rapidly than his limbs. And that's when the doctor took a closer look and right away sent us to a geneticist. And what it made me realize is that if I didn't hone into my curiosity and ask questions and make him aware that something didn't feel right to me, then I don't know how long it would have taken us to get this diagnosis that Brandon ended up getting 6 months later. He has a very rare form of dwarfism called metatropic dysplasia, which less than 85 people have been diagnosed with in the world. So I literally went from, being a corporate woman who juggled motherhood with 2 kids and having all my perceived ducks in a row to realizing that not only did my son have this genetic mutation, that appeared out of nowhere and this new diagnosis, but whenever I asked doctors and specialists, what can we expect about his future, there really weren't any answers. There was no blueprint, there was no playbook. And at that time, there were just these outdated medical journals that had these black and white photos of severe deformities. And so, instead of going down a dark tunnel, my husband and I decided, okay, there are going to be so many things that we will not have answers for, but we can just strive to give Brandon the best life possible.
That's amazing. So, as a mother, your curiosity was tied into your intuition, right? At that moment, you were like, something is not right.
And it's so funny because I feel like it took that season of life, of motherhood, for me to hone into that. I was raised by European parents who taught me to always follow authority. And, the medical community to me was like the end all be all for a while until something just didn't feel right. So it just makes me realize that our intuition and our curiosity will at times lead to questions that could change everything for us.
Yeah, that's so true. And I had a similar experience with my own child. I have a child who also has a serious health challenge that will be lifelong. And so I get that. And I'm curious to know, what advice would you give other parents who receive a diagnosis or think that, something is a little off?
Don't take no for an answer.
Mhm.
Keep looking for answers. And, this for us happened 2 decades ago when there really was no support in place virtually. Now you can get on Facebook, you can get on Google, and you could find support groups. You could find communities with people in it that will be steps ahead of you.
Mm,
If you could hone into that and continue to probe, I think it really is the answer rather than feeling stuck with the fear of the unknown. And I feel like that fear is what holds so many of us back, whether we are mothers, whether we are young, whether we are old. Although I must say, if we think about kids, when we were a kid or when we raised our kids, they were not fearful, right? Like they just kept
mhm.
on exploring and moving forward without judgment. And, when they first learned to walk, they would take a tumble and fall. And we wouldn't freak out and tell them never to do it again. We would just tell them to, okay, you're fine, get back up, try again. And I feel like as we get older, we sometimes get stuck in the fear of the judgment of others or just not knowing where to turn to next. So an open mind and finding a tribe of community people that are willing to walk the path alongside you, who may not even know what it is you're going through, I think is just as important.
For sure, for sure. And do you find that that involves a measure of letting go at some point? I know, for me, that was a great lesson in my daughter's diagnosis, is that I am in control, but I'm not really in control here, and that they have their own journey and their own lessons, and that they're also supported by a force that's greater than me, right? So it's just kind of like giving them the freedom, if this is their journey, and just I think that helped me accept things a little bit more easily.
Oh, I
Um,
so resonate with what you just said. For me, it took a long time to actually let go
mhm,
because, I thought that my job was to really direct and help navigate Brandon's journey throughout the school system, throughout all these different things that presented challenges and, helping him find the right tools, whether it be figuratively or literally, the right step stools, the right mobility device. And then coming up against people that said, it can't be done this way. It's never been done this way. It's not going to work. And so because of that, I did feel like I needed to have control at all times.
mm,
And that all came tumbling down for me 5 years ago when Brandon was so severely cyberbullied by his high school peers during his junior year that we had to pull him out of school.
mm,
And I ended up a few months later getting diagnosed with shingles. And I remember going to the doctor and she very distinctively said, this is all due to stress. So for me, that was my wake up call that this is not going to work the way you've always handled
right,
things.
right.
You're going to have to let go. And at the time, I was filled with fear of his future, of the unknown. Will he be able to conventionally graduate high school? How is his life going to take a turn after experiencing this kind of trauma? And it really wasn't until I got that diagnosis and I was forced to let go that I realized a world of a difference, that things started opening up for him and
Mm,
for me at the same
mhm,
time. And that is when both Brandon and I plunged into the world of personal development. We had gotten an invitation from Tony Robbins to his event, Unleash the Power Within. And we spent 3.5 days just diving deep and learning more about ourselves than we ever envisioned, and even walked on those hot burning coals that he's so famous for. So I could say I'm a fire walker, but
Did you both do that? Did you
we
both?
each did that. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. And I
amazing.
would have, if you would have asked me, Deborah, like 6 months prior, would you ever consider walking on fire? I'd be like, are you crazy? Like, there's no way I would do something as crazy as that.
Mhm.
But when you learn to face your fears and someone teaches you the tools of conditioning your mind and rewiring it for the possibilities rather than all the downfalls that may, make you feel stuck, it just opens up a whole new component in your creativity, in your life. And as I showed up as a mother, I mean,
Mm.
that to me was the wildest thing. What I began to realize is that if I start showing up for myself and really pushing myself and trying new things and leaning into that curiosity, then I am going to show up as a parent in a whole different way and sort of let things unfold. So what I realized is that my role changed. I was no longer the director of his life. I was the consultant. And so
Amazing.
I sort of just
Yeah.
went along for the ride, and it was not easy. It's really challenging to kind of go along for the ride when they are, becoming a young adult, and obviously their brain has not developed, as ours has. But I feel like there's so much to learn from our kids.
Mm.
And instead of being frustrated with the fact that they may do things differently than we hoped they would do, we could learn from their uncharted territory, like the path that we never took. So it really just began opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
It's beautiful. So because you're a mother and also a friend, I know that fear for you still comes up sometimes. For instance, when Brandon recently decided that he wanted to move to LA on his own in the middle of a pandemic, right? And clearly this was an exciting opportunity for him, but it was also one that had a lot of uncertainty. So, I think it just speaks volumes to that he's empowered enough to follow his own curiosity, right? Knowing that that's also how you live your life, right? So like, I'm curious, like, do you say as a family now, like, yes, this is scary, but we're doing it anyway? Is that how you operate? And so if you could talk about like the lessons that you've learned from Brandon making that big move to LA.
Yeah. So what happened was, and it's funny because this came up in my Facebook memories just the other day, a year ago, he and I took a trip to LA and we spent a week there. And yes, his dream was to live in California. He thought LA was going to be his destination. And truthfully, after spending a week there without me telling him, he came to the realization that this isn't exactly the environment that I can thrive in. So what was interesting is that, again, I was the consultant who kind of went along with him on this trip to explore with a fresh set of eyes. Yes, we were still in the middle of a pandemic, but who am I to say that it's not possible to change your environment? Because at that time, who knew how long the pandemic was going to continue?
Right.
And so I've never wanted to feel like I hold him back. So we explored and he came to that conclusion, and we came home, and a few months later, he realized it was San Diego for so many factors, but especially because he was able to find housing that gave him access to a hiking trail that he could take his Segway on and be in fresh air every day, and a 10-minute car ride to the beach where dogs run around off leash, and dogs are just his favorite. And for him to put himself in that environment, he knew like self-care is going to be my number one priority. So it was really interesting to see that leading up to that move, I was nervous. I did have, many sleepless nights, and I'm not going to lie about that. But when you learn to move through that by, first of all, paying attention to what you're feeling, like you're not going to be able to cover it up with
Mm,
food or drinks or, distractions. Like you really have to lean into those difficult feelings, have them come up, and realize everything that you have done up until this point has allowed you to move through the challenges in your life, the obstacles, the difficulties, the unknowns. And the more we sort of, rewire our thinking to realize I can handle this, it's going to be hard, but I can do hard things, then it really unfolds in a way that doesn't cause continuous stress and anxiety. And
mm.
so now, our family, just like any other family, continues to have challenges. I mean, none of us are immune to that. I think that's what these last 2.5 years have taught us, that everything could change on a dime, and it continues to change on a dime. And we have so much chaos in our collective lives that we never even dealt with 3 years ago, that there is no going back to the way it was. And
Right.
there really is no normal. And so we've got to figure out, okay, what are the tools that I have in my toolkit that I can pull out to maneuver through this? Or if I don't have the tools, how can I seek out the resources by aligning myself with people that may have those skills and learn from them, or, listen to podcasts or read books. I mean, what we consume totally changes the way we see life. And it's not just the consumption of what we eat, but it's the consumption of what we read and the people that we surround ourselves with. So I feel like it's just a world, a world effort to all be in each other's villages and help each other walk through these journeys. And,
Mm.
you can't do it alone. That's for sure.
That just perfectly leads into my next question. And, so anyone that knows you, and I have to laugh because is there anybody that you don't know? Actually, you are a master connector. And is that how that developed in your life? Just being curious and being conscious about the people that you surround yourself with? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back, and it's so much easier to look back at our lives and sort of see how the dots connected. Isn't that so interesting that while we're going through things, we don't necessarily see what's unfolding, but when
Mhm.
we look back, we kind of see the pattern. And, what I think about is how isolated I felt during some of the most challenging times. Most of my family and friends did not understand what it was like to take your child to have surgery, at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and have them come home in these leg casts that made them wheelchair bound for months at a time. And then having your older child sort of feel like they were being shipped off,
Mm.
um, that was really challenging, trying to figure out how do you give the child with more medical complexities the attention that they need, while giving your other child the attention that they certainly deserve. Steve and I, my husband and I, tried our best, but I'm not going to lie, it wasn't always equitable. It wasn't always equal. And sometimes you do the best you can and you realize that it's not going to be perceived as, the best by that person. So that was something we had to kind of walk through. And thankfully, my daughter's now 25. We have an amazing relationship, but we did during her middle school years butt heads a lot because she was feeling resentful, and rightfully so.
Mm.
And so I felt so isolated, during the times when we had to go through those surgeries. I had to fight with insurance to get approval. And there was really no one around me at that time that had gone through it. And so that couples with the fact that when Brandon was in middle school, he came home one day and told me he wanted to take his life. And for years, I never talked about how that was the onset of his mental health journey. Although for him, I never made him feel like there was anything wrong with him. I just helped him find the resources of mental health professionals that could help him. And what I do want to tell your audience that sometimes it takes a half a dozen to find the right one. So don't give up.
At least. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And when I look back at all those things in my life that made me feel alone, sometimes by choice, because I felt like if one day Brandon wanted to share that part of his life, it was his story to tell. I did not want people labeling him, judging him, or limiting him in any way. So my husband and I literally like walked this journey on our own, and not until years later started sharing it with even the closest of family and friends. But that all taught me that I'm not the only one who feels that way. And wouldn't it be amazing to help others walk through their difficult times? And we don't have all the answers for everyone, but what we all do have is the ability for meaningful connection. And we have the ability to see the humanity in one another, no matter our age differences, our background differences, our geographical differences. It doesn't matter. What matters is when you start looking at each other with open heart and connecting with open mind, magic happens. So I came to realize that during all of our travels, the more I would open up and share, not necessarily our whole story, but just a bit of myself, the more people started sharing about themselves. And guess what? If you sit with someone for the first time and you ask them questions, 9 times out of 10, they are going to feel like you are such an amazing conversationalist. And the fact is that the conversation is really in their court based on the questions that you ask. So that's another way of, leaning into our curiosity to create more meaningful connection. And with each connection, what I realized is a few minutes prior, we walked in as random strangers, but after our conversation, we connected. And most of the time we would stay connected. I mean, if there were people that I sat next to in an airplane, we would, stay connected on social media. And it's amazing what doors open up and what other people you're introduced to just by being yourself, but connecting with intention.
That's amazing. And thank you for being so vulnerable. I totally agree. And that's what I love about you is your authenticity and your honesty, right? It allows other people to feel that they can be honest and authentic as well. So now that both Brooke and Brandon are living and thriving on their own, how do you embrace curiosity for the next stage in your life?
So the beauty of my professional world is that I get to work with Brandon, and we travel the country and not only go to all of his speaking engagements, but now I'm beginning to speak as well and just share my perspective as a parent. I feel like so many parents are feeling a bit stuck and wondering, what will my child's future be like after they have endured these last couple of years of not ideal situations, and I'm here to say that life is going to throw us off course, and it's going to have all these twists and turns and detours, but that could be the very thing that changes everything for you. And if it hadn't been for the bullying, I don't think Brandon would have found his passion to use his voice to create impact. And, that was not only just testifying and helping to change laws in the state of Virginia, but now he literally gets paid to teach people how to innovate their own solutions by believing in themselves, by realizing that we're all unique and our uniqueness is the true superpower that we each have. So for me, it's finding more opportunity to expand our audiences, whether they be in person or virtual. He a few months ago wrote his second book, and it's a children's book called A Kid's Book About Self-Love. And we truly feel that our work in, addressing bullying is going to come from a different approach. We're never going to expect bullying to end, but if we can help people believe in themselves, then I think there will be less bullying. And if we could start that dialogue with our youth, I think it's going to make a huge, huge difference. And I feel like not only do our kids need to learn that, but many adults need to learn it as well.
So does he now, through his journey, and I'll ask this of you too, is he able to see that chapter of bullying as a gift in some way in his journey?
Yeah. It took therapy and a lot of inner work for him to learn to let go of the anger.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you think about it, the anger is not just directed at the perpetrators, it's directed at yourself because you don't feel like you're enough. Like, what is it about me that made me a target? Why do they not like me? And all these questions are like focusing on the outside. But when you come to the realization after you do the work, and it's a continuous lifetime of work, it will never end. You come to the realization that we can't define ourselves by what other people think. We can't define our self-worth based on the external factors or the material things that may come into our life, but could very easily leave our life, for a variety of reasons. So it's a question of really honing into your ability to love yourself as you are, realize that you're enough, but yet try to better yourself on a regular basis and learn to be in competition with who you were yesterday versus who is, posting things on Instagram, because it's very easy, especially with social media, to get caught up in that comparison cyclone, and you're never going to win because there's always going to be someone who you perceive to be more successful, more attractive, more wealthy, and a slew of other things. And at the end of the day, you just have to keep in mind, those are the highlight reels, and people aren't really, for the most part, letting us into all facets of their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What nuggets of wisdom from you. Amazing. So how can people connect with you and find out more about Brandon and his work?
Yeah, so the website is brandonfarbstein.com, and you'll be able to see the various projects that he's worked on and links to the books and videos and so forth, and some media coverage as well. And for me on Instagram and Facebook, you can find me at Speak Beyond Words. And I also love to connect on LinkedIn under Sylvia Farbstein.
So Sylvia and I would love to hear from you. So please post your comments, your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear that. And if you could like and subscribe, we'd appreciate that also. So thank you so much, Sylvia. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
I loved our conversation. Thank you. You have such great questions. And I really do hope that, sharing a part of ourselves, whether they be the positive or the negative, make people realize that we are all just trying to figure things out and, hopefully doing the best that we can, and that we're not alone in our journeys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care.